Hi, this is Marcia.
And this is Kelly.
We are the 2U's of 2U's Fiber Adventures. Thanks for stopping by.
You'll hear about knitting, spinning, dyeing, crocheting, and just about anything else we can think of as a way to play with string.
We blog and post show notes at 2usfiberadventures.com.
And we invite you to join our 2U's Fiber Adventures group on Ravelry. I'm 100 Projects.
And I am Better in Motion.
We're both on Instagram and Ravelry, and we look forward to meeting you there.
Enjoy the episode. Well, hello everybody. It's Marcia, and Kim is here with me.
Hello.
And this is going to be our last dispatch. We've only had one dispatch, and now this is going to be our last one. We've been so busy that we really have not found time to record.
Well, and also we had some crazy weather things going on too.
Yeah. So we're now recording. This is actually our last day, or last evening. We were just back from dinner, and we're in our room. We're back at the Suna guest house in Reykjavík. We just returned this afternoon, and it's after 9 o'clock, and we're tired, and we have to pack
all the yarn.
All the yarn. And fill out a bunch of, because apparently we can, when we go to the airport, if you spend over 6,000 Icelandic kroner, you get the 14% tax back. So we have we have a few receipts we need to fill out.
Yes.
So, and then also, as I said in the last dispatch, we're not even really going to try and attempt the Icelandic names. I will, I'll send this file to Kelly, and I'll send her an email with all the links in it so she can post that, and you can just go to those links. And since we are tired, we're not going to talk about all the museums that we went to and the restaurants that we went to and the waterfalls that we went to. We're just going to focus on the fiber related things. So the mill. So I will try and it looks like it's pronounced Uppspinni mini mill, and I'll put the link in the show notes. But our understanding from the mill owner is it's the only mill of its kind in Iceland, and she is processing Icelandic sheep wool and some goat too, right? She had some cashmere goats.
Yes.
And you want to talk a little bit about what you bought?
I'm just thinking. So a lot of her yarns were hand dyed.
Yes.
Too. And so they're quite beautiful. So yes, she has the machines for the spinning and sorting and all of that. Mm-hmm. But the colors were just beautiful and very reminiscent of Iceland. And I'm thinking, when you're going around in the store, you're like, do I want the spruce green or the bright green? And so I think that I ended up with spruce green and a natural beige. And I'm kind of excited to see a shawl out of that. It was a little bit softer than the processed yarns that we were finding in Reykjavík.
Yeah. And I bought some sock yarn. Kim is making a gesture at me because I'm going to get to, and Kelly, when you listen to this recording, you will laugh out loud when I tell you what I bought. But I will just say, I did buy some sock yarn and two kinds of sock yarn. And apparently it does not have nylon in it, but because of the long staple in the, because Icelandic wool has two types of wool on it, the long wool, which is a little coarser, and then a finer, shorter wool. And because the sock yarn has both, that long staple, it's supposed to be more durable. So I'm going to try that. I got enough wool for 2 pairs of socks.
One was a really great orange.
Yes, very interesting, sort of tangerine orange. Mm-hmm. And, but the other thing, I was standing around like, I don't know, like I feel like I should buy something. I don't know what to buy. And then I saw the magical cones of yarn. So I bought a cone of DK weight, and it's the natural sheep color. It's a very kind of beautiful silver gray. And the owner of the mill was laughing because I think we were simpatico and liking coned yarn. Is that fair to say?
Yes, totally.
And I bought some buttons there too, some bone buttons. Did you buy buttons?
I didn't. Because what we're finding is that when we go to these smaller mills, they have the ram's ears.
They're reindeer. Well, I don't know. They're reindeer
I think
antler
they're from
or
the
they're
sheep.
the sheep or goat
Some
horns.
of the sheep have horns,
Yeah.
and so they've fashioned them into great buttons.
Yeah. So that was really fun. And then when we came back that evening on the way back.
Can I say one thing about that mill? It was the neatest and tidiest mill I have ever been in.
Yeah.
It was just spotlessly clean and fresh and bright light, and what a wonderful place to work.
And we should also say too is that she's not just processing the wool from her sheep.
Right.
But she's also processing wool from other producers.
Like northern Iceland.
And remember they were talking about the leader
Yes.
sheep? We'll make this quick, but apparently the leader sheep are sheep that they discovered are more observant and a bit more intelligent, and each herd sort of has a leader sheep. That doesn't mean that their wool is any different, but they said they're typically a little bit thinner, and you can always tell the leader sheep because they're always looking at you, where the other sheep are probably grazing. And the shepherd always observes what the leader sheep is doing, because if the sheep, and we should say too, the sheep in Iceland are in the barns during the winter.
Now they are.
And we're here at wintertime, so they're all in the barns. And in the spring, they're sent out to the hillside, the highlands, and they stay there all summer long, and then they bring them back in the fall. When they're in the barn in the winter, if the leader sheep doesn't want to leave the barn, then you don't make the rest of the flock go out, because there's something bad is going to happen outside if they don't want to go out. So the shepherd listens to the leader sheep.
Yeah.
So anyway, there was somebody that was having his leader sheep wool process there.
Yes.
As I say, I don't think the leader sheep have anything different in their fleece, but anyway.
They have great survival instincts.
Great survival instincts. But anyway, then after, so that was what we did that day. And then the next day, we went to the west of Iceland, and we went to a museum, but what we want to talk about was the Haafell goat and sheep farm. And that was really interesting because we did not realize that goats were not typically raised in Iceland.
And they were really, when they were here in numbers, they were bred for their meat and not for their fleece or their milk.
Yeah, just their meat. And so, but that kind of was considered sort of poor people food, is my understanding. And Iceland, as we've learned, has had a long history of poverty and difficulty, because of the environment, difficulty finding food. And as the country became more prosperous, there was less interest in goats.
Yes.
And so the woman who owns the goat and sheep farm has 300 goats, I think, or more, a lot of goats. And she is now raising them for meat, for the milk, making cheese from the milk. And then she's also using the fat to make all sorts of skincare products. So it was interesting talking to her about trying to bring goats back to Iceland. And she's actually now getting government help to do this.
Because they see the diversity in having goats on the land and the benefits that they give just in a diversity of animal stock. Yeah.
So, and then we ended the evening with our bus driver, Hildy, invited us to, and this was funny, her ex-husband's aunt. And so it's kind of funny. We were laughing that she no longer has the husband, but she kept his relatives.
Yes.
And so we went to her aunt, her former aunt's house for kind of a happy hour and textile display. And her aunt's name is Musa. And I'll put a link to her website because she is an artist and she does beautiful watercolors. She probably is 75, I think. Very energetic, very welcoming. She really enjoys entertaining and having people over and having conversation. And
What was wonderful was that you could tell that entertaining was the priority in her home because she had one big room in her apartment and half of it was dedicated to a dining room table.
Yeah, huge dining room table with lots of chairs around it.
Yeah.
And she had 3 separate seating areas, 2 in the living room, and then she had this really cool sort of atrium or sunroom off the living room with another seating area out there. And
also her mother was a prolific knitter, and she had a great photo of her mother knitting on a hillside that was very reminiscent of Elizabeth Zimmerman and knitting in the 30s.
Yeah. And we're bringing that picture home because she gave everybody a book of matches that has that photograph on the book of matches, which is very cool. And then it was really fun too. She had prizes for everybody.
Yes.
And you tell them what you got.
I won an Icelandic horse ornament. It's a felted ornament, and it's a horse. It's not a pony.
Yes. Don't call them ponies. And I won, this is kind of funny, I won a pair of baby booties.
Yes.
I don't know any babies, so I have to find a baby. But they're hand knit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was
so wonderful.
It was really, she was so welcoming, and then she had in her bedroom, the bedroom and her laundry room, she had set up a display of all the hand knits that she had collected over the years. And what we learned too is, and I think this is probably true anywhere in the world, is that the clothes that people wear every day, including hand knits, especially in Iceland, everybody's in hand knits, and they pass them down and they get worn out. So a lot don't survive.
Yeah.
So she had some really cute baby outfits and Afghans and
samplers, embroidered samplers, which is something that they do in school.
And a christening gown too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was very nice. The next day, we had a free day, and that evening, Hildy, our bus driver, invited us to her home, and we had a traditional Icelandic knitting circle and sewing circle, and so everybody brought their knitting projects, and we gathered at her house. Her daughter came by and joined us and showed us some of the products, the projects that she's made, something that she's working on. And then we had really good food.
Yes.
So we had these little open-faced sandwiches with, one had smoked salmon, or like the cold smoked salmon on it.
Shrimps and hard-boiled eggs, which is a staple.
And then some had sliced beef, and the other one had the sliced smoked lamb. And then she made a traditional Icelandic sort of casserole thing that she said that you always serve for parties. Kim didn't have it because it had ham in it. It had sliced ham and asparagus. I think that was the only thing in it other than lots and lots and lots of cheese and cream. And it was very, very rich, very cheesy, and very good. It was dangerously good. So that was really
wonderful.
Fun.
It was wonderful to be in somebody's home, especially when you're traveling, and just to enjoy the hominess.
Yeah.
It's not not being in a hotel room was so wonderful for an evening.
And then Hildy showed us the book that she had made when she was in grade school. And so she was telling us that all Icelandic children, when they're in elementary school, learn to knit. Boys and girls learn to knit. And when she was in school, she had to do it's like a sampler. It's a notebook, and each page there was different, like little swatches of the different knitting techniques that she had to do, and embroidery techniques, and there was even a knitted sock in there, and then the whole cover's embroidered, and so that was kind of fun to see. I thought that was cool. So let me think. Then the next day, Thursday, we went we headed to the east. We stayed at a hotel there for 3 nights, and we did I've posted pictures on Instagram of all the things that we did, but the fiber related thing that we did is on the way to the town where we stayed. We stopped at a wool collective, and I'll put the link in the show notes. It looks like I think it's pronounced like Ullaverkstaedi. wool workshop, and it's a collective of anything wool related.
Yeah, I mean, it's skeins of yarn as well as sweaters, as well as slippers and anything.
Fiber. I bought some roving for spinning.
I bought a reindeer bracelet.
Yes. They had the wool felted insoles that go in your shoes. They had books, pattern books. All the sweaters, all the knitwear is labeled who made it.
Yep.
And we did not, I think we could have spent an hour there probably, or more than an hour.
Because it was more supposed to be just a quick break in and out. And we were like, because, I mean, the building that it was in was like an old-fashioned one-room schoolhouse. And it just was so charming. It was like the old-fashioned Iceland style that I thought we would encounter more. But it's just a house along the highway. And we stopped in, and the women running it were volunteers and very sweet. And how can we help you? And let me tell you, about our organization.
And it started in the 1970s, didn't she say? And that they didn't have that, they were not selling that much, but she said now it's hugely popular with people to go and just see everything that people have made, hats, slippers, mittens, shawls that you can buy. You can buy kits that they put together. What else? I think we've covered it.
Well, I ended up buying a bag of hand-dyed yarns that just were the colors of Iceland. Yeah.
And I can say what I bought for my brother. Because he has I'll be home and he'll have it before he hears this, but it was a felted tea cozy.
Oh yes.
And I know he'll love that because he really likes tea cozies. It's very cute. So they just had all kinds of interesting crafts. So that was very cool.
And it wasn't slick at all. It was just very homey and
it wasn't touristy.
No.
I think we talked about this in the other recording that our first day we went to the hand knitting society, which is more.
It's in the heart of Reykjavík.
Yeah, it's in the heart of Reykjavík, and you don't have the names of the people who knit the sweaters, and so it's just. I really like that idea that you can buy a sweater that actually has the name of the knitter on it. So, what else did we do? Then we went on the other fiber related thing that we did. Was we had a great time just sightseeing. We went to a fishing village. We did lots of knitting.
I actually finished a few things.
Yeah, so I think we talked about this in the last dispatch, but the designer and author Janine Bajus, we always just call her Janine. I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but she substituted as our instructor on this trip, and because Kat Bordy was not able to come. So Janine was there, and she had designed 2 patterns, a hat and a cowl, and I can put in the show notes, I can put a link to both those patterns. They're free. And Kim made the cowl before we left Seattle, and she made the hat.
It actually just took a day and a half it was a really long bus ride between Reykjavík to Haafell, but it was with a really interesting yarn, Putulopi. I think I've got it right. We say the pu like Puyallup and tu and Lopi, and at first both Marcia and I looked at it, I was like, these are these plates, and they're kind of
They're interesting because they're sort of like discs.
Yes.
And they're not rolled into skeins or balls. They're like discs that are maybe 1 inch high and maybe about 8 inches in diameter or so.
And what Janine said is that you have to take care when you're knitting from them. You can't yank and pull. You just gently unwind them.
And don't pull from the center.
Right.
Pull from the outside.
And I started to make the sunwheel hat. And as I was doing the color and the pattern, it was really fun. It was very addictive. And it was just because I do a fair amount of Fair Isle, and using this Icelandic yarn, Plutulopi, it really filled in the edges, and it just the color contrast was so high.
And it's going to have quite a halo.
Yes.
I mean, it has a halo now, and I think if you go home and wash your hat, it's going to have even more of a halo.
And it's not itchy like we were worried that it would be.
And the reason why we're talking about how you pull it from the outside and you pull gently is that it's more akin to roving than to plied yarn. It's a single, and if it's plied at all, it's very, very lightly plied. I don't think it's plied at all. It really is like knitting with roving, which sounds strange, but I have to admit, I was kind of, when I saw the yarn, I thought, I have no interest in knitting with that. But how many little discs do I have now?
We've been price shopping for discs.
So after talking with Janine and seeing Kim knitting on her hat, I think it's very interesting yarn. And so I bought, we went actually to a grocery store at the town where we were staying, Haafell, which we are not pronouncing the correct way, Hofn. But they had a grocery store there where they had just a big bin. It's so funny. Just this huge bin. As I think what Kelly always called that, like the play pit or something.
Yes,
but,
exactly.
You kind of have to climb. We didn't actually literally climb in it, but just this big bin, full of all these discs of this yarn, kind of shrink wrapped in plastic. So it was a little challenging to see the colors, but we made do. And I think we each bought 5.
Well, and I had bought 3 at the Hand Knitting Association, and the colors were really interesting. And I didn't see most of those in the grocery store shopping that we did, but it just is really interesting fiber, and it's unique to Iceland. And what I think, talking to Janine, what's really interesting about it is the staple of it is really long. So it's very forgiving. And if you do accidentally pull it apart, you just splice it together and keep on knitting.
Yeah. So that was actually, so anyway, the thing is we had a lot of time in East Iceland to just knit. And in the mornings, well, we should say 2 in the mornings, Kim taught.
Yes.
So she volunteered to lead a class each morning for 45 minutes.
It was a tension release class for your neck and shoulders. And it's something that I do at the Knitters Retreat at Fort Worden. And I offered it here, and we had a space, and so I taught 2 mornings, and it's all about just releasing tension in your neck, shoulders, and hands.
Yeah.
Which anybody who's been knitting on a bus for 6 hours will say, "Oh, that feels good."
And then Janine had a sort of a knitting clinic.
Yes.
Where she talked about the sun wheel. Isn't that what it's called? The sun wheel hat. She talked about that, and I think that's really, between that talk and then watching you knit on your hat, sort of convinced me that I wanted to get some of that yarn. So
and you tried the hat on, and you're like, "Wow, this is kind of nice."
Yeah. So,
so you've started it.
Yeah, I've started it. I did a tubular cast on, and I've knit 1 inch of the ribbing. I have another 1/2 inch, but what I really wanted to work on, though, was my sweater. On the bus, I was working on a shawl, and in the evenings, I was working on my sweater. The sweater that I'm working on is one of those bottom-up sweaters, so you knit up the body up to the armholes, and then you have to knit the 2 sleeves. So I have 1 sleeve done, and I wanted to finish the 2nd sleeve so I can attach the sleeves to the body and work on that on our flight home tomorrow evening. So on the bus home today, I worked on that. So I didn't work on the hat. Yeah. Also, we were talking about, it is sort of delicate yarn when you pull it. I think I didn't want to knit on the bus because the bus is jerking around. We're getting on and off the bus, and there's more chances I'm going to tear it, which, as we said, is not a big deal if it does break, but I still just didn't want to deal with it. I wanted to work on that sleeve.
And I got to finish my Heaven in Space by Martine Blenheim. shawl, which I've been working on for 3 months, and it was on the plane and on the bus, and I got to finish it and wear it. And then I finished one of my slippers, and it's just a simple garter stitch slipper.
Yeah, so we should say about the slippers, though, because there was and we talked about this in the first dispatch, that there was a design your own sweater class that we went to at a yarn shop. But we had to make a worsted weight swatch, which we did, but there was some confusion from the instructor at the yarn shop. We don't have no idea what happened, but the point is, we get there at the yarn shop expecting to do a blankets cable or a
baby blanket.
A baby blanket, and she said, "Oh, we're doing the sweater thing," and we didn't have our swatches, so we had actually bought yarn, the Lopi yarn, to make the swatches, which was completely irrelevant because we never did it.
Well, what's interesting is it's Leti Lopi that we bought, and it's very much Icelandic from, I think, Ice Tech. And in knitting on that and then knitting on the Plu to Lopi, they both initially felt really scratchy, but after finishing the hat, I was not bothered at all with the fiber, just the feel of the fiber of the Plu to Lopi. But still with the Leti Lopi, I'm not liking it. Yeah. And I'm glad it's going to be slippers and on my feet.
Yeah. So what we did is we ripped out our swatches, our little gauge swatches, and I just gave my yarn to Kim, and she found a slipper pattern, and she's made one slipper. Yeah. Right, and you're halfway done?
I'm halfway done with the other
one. With the second one.
So it'll be done on the plane.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay, so then I think the last fiber thing that we wanted to talk about was today on our drive back to, I'm sorry, I'm still rustling paper. On our drive back to Reykjavík, we stopped at Hespa Iceland Colors, and this is where the owner does hand dyes with natural dyes and really focuses. her degree is in botany, and she did her dissertation on, and her dissertation is turned into a book, which she sells at her shop, but she's really focusing on natural dyes of Iceland. And she talked about the different, which we were familiar with much of it, like getting colors from lichen and onion skins and
lupin,
but some things, so
moss.
We understand the concept, but we learned she dyes with rhubarb root and rhubarb leaves. The root makes like a purpley black color kind of, and the leaves make kind of a what would that color be? Kind of a mauvey, blackish brown color, kind of a different color. Yeah. So, it was really interesting. Then lupin, she was dyeing with lupin. She was dyeing, she said historically they did begin to import indigo from India. So it's all historical.
Yes.
What she's doing, and beautiful colors. And we had to buy some.
We did. Because the colors had an intensity, a saturation that was just wonderful. And she had a wonderful new space that she's expanded into. And she said we were the first group that she had invited in. I thought it was really fun when we walked in that she had 3 rows of dye kettles.
Yeah, huge dye pots, that she had. And she lives in that space. Yeah. That's her house. We were actually in her living room. So it was really fun.
Yeah.
To see that.
We had seen a lot of her kits around Reykjavík, but going to her studio was really fun.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it. As I say, there was other things we did, but we just wanted to focus on the fiber things because that's, as we say, we're tired and we need to do a little work before we catch our flight home tomorrow. Yes. So anything else you want to add?
No, it's been, people ask, are you going to come back? And I was like, well, I hope so, because it's been fascinating to be here in the winter, but it also makes me very curious about the spring and the fall. And the food and the people have been wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, food has been great. The people have been great. Our guide Hildy, our bus driver, was fantastic. Enjoyed meeting the people that were with the group. The interesting thing about coming in winter is it's such a different experience for us. Just the snow and it's not as busy because people want to come when the weather's nice. The downside of being here, as everyone should be aware of, is you have a lot less hours of light.
Yes.
So things open up, like things are ready to go at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, but it feels really weird because it's pitch black outside at 9 o'clock in the morning. But it's gotten lighter.
Yeah, it has.
And then it feels weird too that it's when we first got here, it was getting dark at 4:30, and now today it's closer to 5. So it is. You don't have as many hours of daylight, and which can be, it's not so much of an issue in Reykjavík when you want to go, if you're at a museum or you're doing shopping or whatever, but when you are out in the countryside and you want to see waterfalls and mountains, that's something to take into consideration. Yeah. And there are some days, there was one day here in particular that was so windy. The day we did the cooking class, which we talked about, that we just came back and kind of holed up in the hotel room because it was a bit too much to go outside. It was, there was a warning.
Yeah, gale force winds.
That don't go out if you don't have to. So something to keep in mind about traveling in winter, but it is kind of magical in the winter.
And that said, in East Iceland, we had blue skies for 3 days that were just glorious. Beautiful blue skies and very little wind. Mm-hmm. And so it's a mixed bag if you come in the winter. I think that's all we want to say. I think we've had a great time. I think we are kind of ready to go home though too, right? Go home to our doggies.
Yeah, we're ready to go home and see our dogs. Oh, and my son too. Okay, well that's it. We're going to send this off to Kelly and she's going to post it for us. And then I'll be back probably, a week or two. I'll record with Kelly.
Yeah, signing off from Reykjavík.
Alrighty, bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. To subscribe to the podcast, visit 2usfiberadventures.com.
Join us on our adventures on Ravelry and Instagram. I am Better in Motion and Kelly is 100 Projects.
Until next time, we're the 2Us
doing our part for World Fleece.